We're going to begin here with President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signaling a peace deal could be in reach to end Russia's invasion. The two leaders sat down for talks at the president's Mar-a-lago estate Sunday to go over a 20-point peace plan on the table to end the war. The talks come as Russian attacks continue against Ukraine, with bombings reported throughout Christmas. Zelensky and Trump say about 90 to 95% of the deal appears to be done, but key sticking points over control of contested land remain.
We're getting closer to an agreement on that, and that's a big issue. Certainly, that's one of the big issues, and I think we're closer than we were probably. It's unresolved, but it's getting a lot closer. That's a very tough issue.
We have to respect our law and our people. We respect the territory which we control. And of course, our attitude is very clear. That's why President Trump said this is a very tough question. And of course, we have with Russians different positions on it.
Joining me now in the group chat, Stephen Collinson, CNN senior politics reporter, Francesca Chambers, White House correspondent for USA Today, and Mike Leon, anchor for the Legal Podcast Network. And Stephen, I do want to start with you. What were your key takeaways from the meetings this weekend?
I think it's encouraging that the administration is now clearly working deep on the details of this issue. This is no longer just about President Trump coercing Ukraine into a quick deal. And that said, however, the movement here is from Ukraine, apparently willing to accept some territorial concessions, albeit with security guarantees. Zelensky this morning is talking about trying to get at least a 15-year and potentially much longer security guarantees from the United States about Ukraine's sovereignty in the event of any peace deal. But this is still very complex. It's all about sequencing. And we're still at the point where the United States is agreeing with Ukraine and potentially Europe. But no one is agreeing with Russia. And the key question remains out there is whether there is any reason for Russia to stop the fighting. There's been no sign that President Putin is willing to do that. He wants unequivocal handover of these key territories in eastern Ukraine by Ukraine. And that is the big question. And it's always been the big question. Can the president get Ukraine to agree something that Russia will accept? And that looks as far away now as it did 3 years ago.
And also, as we know here in the United States, 15 to 20-year commitments overseas is another sticking point completely. Mike, I do want to ask you, what do you see is the definition of progress at this point? Because we hear that word being thrown around a lot, but what does it actually mean tangibly? Because it feels like we're in the same spot we've been at for months.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback on what Stephen said, and you said it in the intro when you read it. It's Russia. Everything points towards Russia. We still have no negotiation with Russia and no movement to what Stephen said. So what does it look like for the Ukrainian people? I mean, if you just saw this past offensive that just happened, I think a day or two ago, it means that there's still bloodshed that's happening, right? And so we are further away, potentially, and I think the president wants to claim victory right away, as he always does with all of these peace deals that have been negotiated. And once you start to drill into the frameworks of them, you get one side, but you don't get the other. We're going to talk about Israel-Gaza later on, and we're seeing that as well. But, you know, in all of this, from a foreign policy perspective, as I've spoken to people from my show that have formerly worked for Obama and the Bush administration, it takes two to tango. And right now, unfortunately, we don't know what Vladimir Putin wants. We know that they're having some challenges with recruiting more military members. That recently came out reporting-wise that they're trying to hit a goal of 400,000 troops for next year. We'll see if that nets out, but it doesn't look like Russia wants to concede anything, and we're still in the same spot where we are. Two main issues: security guarantees, land concession. That's the same thing during the 2024 election cycle that we were talking about. We're still talking about it today.
Well, Mike, to your point, Trump says there are only a few sticking points remaining over a deal, but also said that this, when asked about what a post-war future looks like, let's take a listen.
Russia's going to be helping. Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed. Once, it sounds a little strange, but I was explaining to the president, President Putin was very generous in his feeling toward Ukraine succeeding, including supplying energy, electricity, and other things at very low prices.
So you hear him there, Francesca. He says Russia wants Ukraine to succeed as Russia continues to bomb Ukraine. Is this another case where the last person in the president's ear is the one getting the most attention?
Well, he had spoken to Vladimir Putin for more than 2 hours, he said, prior to his conversation with President Zelensky yesterday. And then he indicated he may talk to Putin again and he may talk to Zelensky again as well. But what you're zeroing in on is a statement that was negatively panned by Ukraine backers for saying that Russia wants Ukraine to succeed here and that they're being very generous. I mean, he didn't go into detail, but that generosity I would suspect that he's referring to is the idea that Russia would control the Zaporizhia power plant and then Ukraine could somehow buy energy or get energy from it. That's currently under Russian control. It's Ukraine's power plant, and under the U.S. plan, it would be something that they jointly share control over. Obviously, that is not what Ukraine wants. And that is not what Russia wants in this particular instance. That is a key sticking point. And to Stephen's point, I mean, the things that we're talking about are the same things that have been talked about in a deal this entire time. It's the Donbass region and the territory. It's the Zaporizhia power plant. It's the security guarantees. And so when they say that, they're making big strides on this, it's hard to know at this stage how much real progress is being made.
And let's talk about what that entire time means, because Trump also said this about how the deal is unfolding as we get nearly a year into his second term.
We could be very close. There are one or two very thorny issues, very tough issues, but I think we're doing very well. We've made a lot of progress today, but really we've made it over the last month. This is not a one-day process deal. This is very complicated stuff.
Stephen, he said it's not a one-day deal, but on the campaign trail, he was saying he could solve this in a day. He had already been president before, so ignorance is not something that he could claim at this point. What did he miscalculate here?
I think, and he has spoken about it himself, he thought this would be a lot easier to solve. He thought the force of his personality and relationship with Putin would overcome a lot of the geopolitical issues and Putin's own political issues here. That obviously didn't pan out. That said, I think the U.S. approach has got a lot more serious in recent months. Since they did the deal in the Middle East to end the Gaza war, they seem to have come upon at least some kind of formula for peacemaking that does create incremental progress. One positive thing I would say about the Trump approach is this idea of constant optimism. Sometimes in a peace negotiation, and we've seen this with the Middle East peace negotiations in the early 2000s or the 90s in Northern Ireland, is that when there is somebody in an enforcement role continually creating the illusion of peace, sometimes that creates the space for small steps forward. And it kind of locks in a lot of the key players to keep trying to avoid alienating the person in control like President Trump. That may be something that creates some pressure on Russia, although, a cynic would say history says that Putin is not going to make a compromise here.
And that seems to be the only way that we will actually get to it, and as if he does. So we'll see what happens. Group chat, be sure to stay with me here. We've got lots more to talk about.